January 2006, Tenerife. A chilly winter evening shatters the illusion of paradise in Playa de las Americas. British expat couple Billy and Florence Robinson step out of a lively Japanese teppanyaki restaurant, laughing with friends, unaware it's their final meal. By 11:30 p.m., Florence lies dead beside her silver Mercedes, just 300 meters from their fortified £1 million villa in San Miguel de Arona, her body crumpled in a pool of blood. Hours later, Billy is found slumped in the back of his Porsche Cayenne, several kilometers away in a desolate industrial estate in Las Chafiras. Stabbed repeatedly, his throat slashed, his £100,000 gold watch still glinting on his wrist. Nothing stolen. This wasn't robbery, it was personal. A calculated execution in a sun-soaked haven turned deadly. Who wanted the Robinsons dead? What secrets did they carry from Tenerife's glittering timeshare empire? Welcome to Crime Pulse. This is a story of greed, betrayal, and blood beneath the palm trees. A true crime saga that exposes the dark heart of a holiday paradise. Stick with us as we unravel the mystery, because the truth is more dangerous than it seems. If you're new here, hit subscribe and join our growing community, digging into the UK's most dangerous criminal underworlds. Like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. 1984, Tenerife. The sun-drenched island is a haven for British tourists, but a new player is about to change the game. John Goldfinger Palmer, a 34-year-old Birmingham native, lands on the island just as UK police close in on him for his role in the infamous Brink's-Mat heist, a £26 million gold bullion robbery that shocked Britain in 1983. Palmer, suspected of smelting and laundering the stolen gold, isn't sticking around for handcuffs. With no extradition treaty between Spain and the UK, Tenerife is his perfect hideout. But Palmer isn't here to hide, he's here to conquer. Born in 1950 to a working-class family in Solihull, Palmer clawed his way out of poverty. By his teens, he was running a jewelry shop that doubled as a front for fencing stolen goods. By 20, he was pulling in six figures through slick VAT frauds, importing gold and pocketing tax rebates. His knack for turning dirty money clean earned him the nickname Goldfinger and a key role in the Brink's-Mat saga, linking him to notorious criminal Kenny Noye. Acquitted years later, Palmer's reputation as a master of fraud was sealed. Tenerife was his next canvas. Having visited in the late 1970s and bought an apartment, he saw untapped potential in the island's tourism boom. Inspired by Florida's timeshare craze, where holidaymakers bought shared weeks in dream resorts, Palmer twisted the model into something darker. His operation, centered around a holiday village, promised sun-soaked escapes. Behind the champagne brunches and glossy brochures, it was a machine of deception. Tourists were lured into high-pressure sales rooms, pressured into signing complex and long-term contracts for properties that often didn't exist or were never truly theirs. It was fraud dressed up as paradise, raking in millions. Palmer didn't do it alone. He recruited an army of young British men, salesmen, ex-soldiers, bodybuilders, and small-time crooks from Wolverhampton, Teesside, Darlington, and beyond. Some worked the sales floor with charm. Others ensured payments were made, no questions asked. As his empire grew, so did its shadow. Salesmen turned into enforcers, and enforcers drifted into drug dealing and nightlife control. Tenerife's underbelly was taking shape, a hidden world of coercion and cash behind the island's sunny facade. By the mid-1980s, Palmer's wealth and influence were skyrocketing, but so were the eyes watching him. Rivals, opportunists, and enemies from his Brink's-Mat past circled closer. The stage was set for a collision, because in Tenerife's underworld, power like Palmer's never goes unchallenged. What happens when greed ignites violence? In the mid-1980s, a dusty back street near Los Cristianos, Tenerife, became the scene of a chilling warning. A British expatriate lay bloodied on the ground, his hands and legs broken, surrounded by four men wielding baseball bats. One casually lit a cigarette, indifferent to the violence. This wasn't just an attack on one man, it was a message to anyone watching. Tenerife's underworld was ruthless, and control came at a brutal cost. At the heart of this dark world was John Goldfinger Palmer, a charismatic yet cunning figure who had just launched his holiday village, a timeshare business that promised sunny dreams to tourists. Behind the glossy brochures and friendly smiles of front desk manager Florence Robinson and her Jack Russells, Sid and Nancy, a more sinister operation thrived. Palmer's empire was built on more than just timeshares. It was fueled by money laundering, drug deals, and a growing network of enforcers. Palmer's rise began when he met Mohammed Derba, a disciplined and sharp Libyan bodyguard, during a business trip to Libya in the early 1980s. Impressed, Palmer brought Derba to Tenerife, where he quickly became a key player in the island's shadowy economy. By 1986, Tenerife was earning a new nickname, the White Island, not for its sandy beaches but for the cocaine flooding its vibrant party scene. Palmer lived like a king, but his empire needed muscle to survive, and Derba was the perfect enforcer. Derba didn't just enforce, he built his own fearsome crew, including his brothers and tough figures nicknamed Psycho Bill and the Sharks. Rivals who refused to pay protection faced brutal consequences, with whispers of torture and disappearances. These weren't just bouncers, they were a disciplined force, sporting Nike tracksuits and designer sunglasses, ruling Tenerife streets with fear. By 1986, Palmer faced trouble. British authorities pressured Spanish officials to revoke his passport over suspicions of his involvement in major crimes, including links to the infamous Brink's-Mat gold heist in the UK. Forced to flee, Palmer escaped through Lisbon to Brazil, where he was briefly arrested. In a surprising twist, the charges collapsed in 1987, and he returned to Tenerife, more determined than ever. But rumors swirled that London crime families, possibly tied to the Brink's-Mat gold, were gunning for him, believing he'd used their money to fund his empire. Palmer responded by strengthening his own crew, but tensions were mounting. By the early 1990s, cracks appeared in Palmer's operation. Derba was no longer just muscle, he was building his own power base, reportedly backed by influential figures from Russia and the Middle East. A quiet rivalry began to simmer between the mentor and his protege, with control over money, territory, and loyalty at stake. Tenerife's clubs, car parks, and quiet villas became battlegrounds for violent clashes between rival security crews. Some ended in warnings, others left bodies in their wake. The island's sunny facade was fading, revealing a pressure cooker ready to explode. By 1993, Tenerife's timeshare boom was a goldmine, but it came with a dark side. Behind the sunny offices and charming sales pitches, rival factions fought for control of the lucrative industry. Violence erupted as groups battled over turf, with money fueling brutal rivalries. One key player was Andrew Winder, a bodybuilder from Darlington, who had risen to lead security for hundreds of timeshare apartments in Tenerife. In 1993, a violent clash in Puerto Royal, Los Cristianos, changed everything. Winder was caught in a deadly dispute with other British expats tied to the island's aggressive timeshare security crews. The details remain murky, but the outcome was tragic. Winder was stabbed and shot, and he later died. Richard Challinor, a former rugby player working for Winder, claimed in a 1994 interview with the Sunday Sun that Winder had attacked him, leading to a chaotic fight. Another man, Stephen Coates, admitted to shooting Winder in self-defense and was released on bail. Spanish police confirmed the incident was linked to a timeshare security feud, but the full truth remains elusive. Winder's death sent shockwaves through Tenerife's expat community, exposing the violent underbelly of the timeshare trade. For his family and friends, who remembered him as a big friendly giant and a lovely guy, the loss was devastating. His murder marked a turning point, signaling that Tenerife's shadow economy was spiraling out of control. By 2000, Tenerife was a magnet for British tourists, its clubs and bars buzzing with energy. But beneath the party scene, old rivalries were reaching a breaking point. That year, London-based figure Dave Courtney, known for his colourful persona, visited the island with friends and their wives. One night at Bobby's Bar, a popular British hangout, a brutal attack unfolded. A man, reportedly of Middle Eastern or North African descent, was viciously beaten by a group of bodybuilder types, landing him in a coma. In the chaos, the victim mistakenly pointed to Courtney's group as his attackers, though they had only met that night. Word spread quickly, and Mohammed Derba, now a dominant force in Tenerife's underworld, allegedly sent his enforcers to the strip. They tracked Courtney's group back to Bobby's Bar, where a violent confrontation erupted. One of Courtney's friends was seriously injured, and shots were fired in the mayhem. Courtney later said they barely escaped alive. Some speculated that Durbar believed Palmer had orchestrated the initial attack to provoke trouble in one of Durbar's venues, escalating their ongoing power struggle. Tenerife in 2000 was no longer just a holiday paradise. It was a battleground where loyalty, power, and money collided. The island's underworld, fueled by timeshare scams and drug trafficking, had turned its sunny streets into a stage for violence and betrayal. As the new millennium began, one thing was clear: control of Tenerife's shadows came at a deadly price. In 2001, John Goldfinger Palmer's empire of sun-soaked lies came crashing down. The man who once ranked alongside the Queen on the Sunday Times rich list, with a fortune estimated at £300 million, was convicted of orchestrating Britain's largest timeshare fraud. His holiday village in Tenerife, a sprawling complex of 450 villas, had lured 20,000 victims with promises of dream vacations, only to deliver worthless contracts and financial ruin. Palmer's operation netted £30 million through aggressive sales tactics and fictitious deals, leaving pensioners and families like Bernard Mumby from West Yorkshire, who lost £5,000 and spent years in debt, devastated. Defending himself at the Old Bailey after dismissing his legal team, Palmer claimed he was too rich to need such scams. The jury disagreed, sentencing him to 8 years. He served just over 4, reportedly running his empire from his cell at HMP Long Lartin via tapped phone calls. By 2005, declared bankrupt with £3.9 million in debts, Palmer's reign seemed over, but the seeds of his deceit had taken root, ready to sprout anew. Palmer's conviction left a void in Tenerife's timeshare underworld, but the island's scam machine didn't stop. It evolved. As Palmer languished in prison, his blueprint inspired a slicker, more insidious wave of fraud. Reclaim scams. These schemes targeted the very victims Palmer had fleeced, offering false hope of recovering losses. Con artists, posing as lawyers or recovery agents, cold-called timeshare owners, promising to void fraudulent contracts or secure refunds. For a price, Margaret, a 68-year-old retiree from Manchester, paid £7,000 to a supposed legal firm in 2004, only to discover their Tenerife office was a front. Her savings vanished, a story echoed by thousands. By 2005, Spanish police reported a surge in these scams, estimating losses in the tens of millions, often linked to call centers in Playa de las Americas tied to Palmer's former associates. Unlike the high Novak Djokovic's performance of the 90s, these frauds were polished. Scammers ditched baseball bats for charm, using professional scripts and fake credentials to build trust. The Guardia Civil's Greco unit, tasked with combating organized crime, struggled to keep up, hampered by offshore accounts and shell companies that hid the money trail. The scam's sophistication marked a departure from Palmer's violent clumpers who once beat rival touts into submission, but the devastation remained the same. Emerging in the early 2000s, Club Altamira epitomized this new era. Marketed as a premium holiday ownership scheme, it promised exclusive resorts and lifetime getaways. Instead, clients like John, a former POW who spoke to The Independent in 2001, faced extortionate fees and non-existent properties. John paid thousands for a villa slot, only to be strong-armed into £460 maintenance fees, despite proof of payment, under the watchful eyes of armed guards. Club Altamira's glossy websites, fake testimonials, and high-pressure sales calls ensnared thousands across the UK, Germany, and Scandinavia, raking in millions. Its operators, often linked to Palmer's old networks, used a web of over 300 companies to obscure their tracks, a tactic straight from his playbook. The internet supercharged these schemes. Email campaigns, fake review sites, and social media ads cast a global net, luring victims with polished marketing. Tenerife's call centers buzzed with activity, their operators posing as legitimate agents from London or Madrid. This digital evolution made scams harder to trace, as fraudsters hid behind encrypted platforms and offshore servers. By the late 2000s, Greco estimated these operations generated £12 million annually, but international jurisdiction issues and local corruption slowed investigations. Tenerife's reputation as a tourist haven suffered. Holidaymakers grew wary of the island's sunshine fraudsters, as The Independent dubbed them. Tenerife's timeshare scams, reborn from Palmer's empire, left a lasting scar. The island, once a beacon for 4 million annual tourists, became synonymous with deceit. Victims like Constance Bartram, who lost £17,000, faced not only financial ruin, but also intimidation when seeking redress. The Guardia Civil's efforts were stymied by complex networks and a wall of silence in the underworld, making convictions rare. Palmer's legacy lived on in the pain of thousands, the unsolved murders of the Robinsons, and a tainted paradise where greed outlasted justice.